Hey everybody, as you all already know, it's me. And if you have kept up with this story, you guys should also know that in this part of the story, it's actually where, well, yeah, Dr. Light leaves, but Zoom actually enters, like in the canon storyline of the Flash TV show. And yes, I'm going to go ahead and let that one, well, I'm going to let that play out. And I'm also going to um, go in a little bit more details as to what's happening with Pietro's speed. I'm pretty sure I already said something about that in the last chapter, but yeah, there's going to be a little bit more about it in this one. And in the next chapter, I'm going to let that one, as well as a few others after, be about Pietro because the story is really about Pietro's journey through this new world. But I'm pretty sure you'd rather me just let the story speak for itself. So, by all means, let's go ahead and get this started.
Chapter 5. The light exits, and the darkness enters. As Pietro was running with his superspeed on the scientifically made treadmill, both Caitlin and Cisco were monitoring Pietro's progress. Cisco's eyes widened seeing that Pietro's speed results were not only more impressive than Barry's, but he seemed to be fueled by something that's similar yet different than the speed force. Wow, this must be the results you were talking about. Cisco mumbled. Yup. Caitlin said. The readings are very intriguing, aren't they? Caitlin said. Caitlin and Cisco continued to monitor the test. Pietro was now running with the treadmill going at 6,141 miles an hour, when all of a sudden they saw that there was a red energy that briefly emitted from his legs. Wait, what was that? Caitlin asked herself. Caitlin shrugged her shoulders and thought that whatever it was probably nothing to worry about, and if it was anything, it didn't appear to be hurting Pietro. Once the treadmill tests were finished, Pietro slowed down and stopped, then got off the treadmill, and went over to Caitlin and Cisco. So, how did I do? Pietro asks. Well, I'm surprised to say the least. Caitlin said. You're not as fast as Barry, but your results were pretty good. Pretty good. Pietro scoffed. What are my exact speed results? Your max speed is around 6,141 miles per hour, while Barry's is around 6,414 miles per hour. Caitlin answered. But you seem to be getting faster, and faster every time. Cisco said. I was hoping that I could be faster than Barry, but this is good enough for now. Pietro said. Pietro quickly went to get a bottle of water and he remembered Cisco saying that he got some cheeseburgers for him in his lab. When Pietro left, both Cisco and Caitlin immediately started talking about Pietro's results. His results are just so interesting. Caitlin said. Yeah, like what's that red energy that briefly appeared from his legs? Cisco added. It looked like he was using a different type of energy than the speed force. Cisco said in thought. I thought I was the only one who saw it for a sec. You saw that red energy too? Caitlin asks. Yep, it appeared and disappeared so quickly I almost didn't see it. Cisco replied. This is interesting indeed. Caitlin said. Both Cisco and Caitlin continued to talk about the different kinds of energies they have seen, and the different types of energy that could have been the cause of the red energy that had emitted from Pietro's legs. It could be because of the type of energy he's emitting when he runs. Caitlin said. Yeah, it's like the speed force, but different in a way. Cisco says looking at Pietro's speed test results. We'll have to ask Pietro later. Caitlin said. Yeah, but Barry kind of does have some points. I mean, Zoom appears to be a very smart guy, so maybe Barry has a point when he says is that it might take a little bit more than just speed to take him down. Cisco says. Both Cisco and Caitlin agreed on that, so they decided to turn their focus on other matters for now, such as deciding who should take charge of the plan for the meeting between Barry, Linda and Dr. Light later that night. Then Jay walks in, and Caitlin brightens up in surprise. Hey Jay. she said happily. Hey Caitlin. Cisco. Jay greets to both of them. Cisco hid a sly and knowing smirk, as well as a chuckle under his breath, but he greeted Jay as well. So, what's going on? What are you guys doing? Jay asks. Well, me and Caitlin were just looking at Pietro's results, and they look more promising than even Barry's. Cisco said, showing the results to Jay. Jay's eyes widen, seeing the results. Whoa, these look pretty good. I think he may be on to more than just speed. Jay said. What do you mean? Caitlin asks. Well, I did mention that I'm a scientist on my Earth, so I just came up with a hypothesis for Pietro's speed. If he's from an entirely different Earth, like you say he is, then Pietro could possibly do more than just cross onto other Earths. What do you mean? Cisco asks. Well, we don't know if he can do more than just travel between different worlds. But maybe he can do a little more than the average speedster, because he does have more than just the speed force inside of him, so he probably has more speed powers than what we originally thought. Jay explains to Caitlin and Cisco. Both Caitlin and Cisco thought about this, and thought that everything Jay said sounds like a fair hypothesis to look deeper into. Hey Pietro. Would you please let us run some more tests? Cisco asks. Well, I still feel a bit tired, but after I'm rested up, yes, I do not mind some more tests. Pietro answered. With Barry and Patty. Around 8 p.m., Barry was the first to show up there, and he was dressed up handsomely. He waited for a few minutes, but considering he's the Flash, those few minutes felt like a few hours. But when she showed up, Barry smiled brightly, seeing how beautiful she looked in her burgundy dress. Wow, you look beautiful in that dress, and burgundy looks really good on you. Barry said. As they were drinking some wine, and getting to know each other, they were laughing, giving each other compliments, and Patty even asked Barry how it felt to get struck by lightning for the first time. Barry said that it was life-changing, to say the least. Then Patty asked if it hurt. Then Barry said that all he remembers is electricity surging through his body, and he said that it was an intensity that he never felt before, and how he felt that he was instantly connected to everything around him. Then he said that he remembered waking up from a coma 9 months later. Wow, you make being hit by lightning sound so amazing. Patty said to Barry, followed by a laugh and a smile. Barry gave her a small smile back, sipping his wine. When they were finished with their dinner, and the wine was done, both Barry and Patty got up and paid their bill. Barry walked Patty to her car. Then when they got there, they both looked into each other's eyes. Patty smiles, and they shared their first kiss between each other. Then Patty said that she had a pretty great night, and Barry said the same thing. They kissed again. I'll see you at work tomorrow. Patty said in a happy, sultry tone. Yeah, and I can't wait. Barry said, smiling. Then Patty got into her car, and drove off. When she was gone, Barry sighed and said to himself that it was a pretty great night, but then his cell phone rang. Barry took out his cell phone and looked at the caller ID, and saw that it was STAR Labs. He answered, and it was Cisco. At STAR Labs. Cisco first asked Barry how his date with Patty went, and Barry simply said that it was fine and quickly asked what he called him there for. Oh right, this is about Pietro. Cisco said. Did you find something about his powers? Barry asks. Maybe. We've just run some tests and we've found something new. Cisco said. Okay. So what is it? Barry asks. Well, he was using a different type of energy than the speed force. It looked similar, but also different. Caitlin said. We can't figure out where he got it from, and it appeared when he was running the treadmill. Cisco explained. We're still trying to figure it out. We think that Pietro can do more than just travel between different worlds. Caitlin said. Really? Barry asks. It's still a hypothesis, and we want to see if we can find out if this hypothesis is right. Jay said. Wow, I'm really impressed with you guys, and you all managed to find this all out without Wells's help. Barry asks. Yep. Cisco said. Well, technically, Caitlin found out first, but it was still without Harry's help. Cisco said with the same amount of pride in his voice. Good. Barry said with a nod. I think Pietro's powers are more than just speed. He might have a few more tricks up his sleeve, and that might be why he's not quite as fast as you, but it also might give us a fighting chance against Zoom. Jay said. We'll have to wait and see. Barry said. That's true, but I have a feeling that you and the others will beat Zoom. You'll stop Zoom, I just know it. Jay said, giving a confident nod to both Barry and the others. Thanks, Jay. You and the others are great. Especially you, Jay. Barry said to Jay with a smile. Jay gave him a smile back, and a nod, and then Barry went back home, and Pietro made something and went back down to the pipeline again, and when Pietro found her, both Pietro and Dr. Light had another meaningful moment with each other again. Dr. Light told Pietro about how she became a thief on her Earth. Dr. Light told him how she used to have a good job, but the company she worked for had gone out of business, and she ended up in a lot of debt, and her family was struggling, and she did everything she could, but she eventually gave up, and stole for the first time. Then when the particle accelerator happened at the same time she was looking at Starlight, she saw that she could do it better, and that's when she first became Dr. Light. I know it's not a good thing, and I know that you must think I'm a horrible person. Dr. Light said. No, I don't think that you're a bad person. Pietro said to her. When me and my sister were just kids, we stole from people just to stay alive. We did a lot of bad stuff when we were kids, so, no judgment from me, I understand that you did what you had to do. Pietro said. Dr. Light smiled and said, thank you. She then moved closer and Pietro put a vibrating hand on her glass cell. Dr. Light placed her hand on his vibrating hand. Then the rest of his body started vibrating, and to both Dr. Light and his own surprise, he phased right through her glass cell. Pietro and Dr. Light were both shocked and surprised by this, and Dr. Light said that she didn't know he could do that, and Pietro said that the Flash told him about it, but he wished he worked on this a little more. I've only just gotten this power, so I don't know exactly how it works, but it could take a while to figure it out. Pietro said. It's okay, I don't mind. Dr. Light said with a smile. Pietro smiles back at her. Pietro looks into Dr. Light's eyes, and Dr. Light looked into his. Both Pietro and Dr. Light then kissed each other on the lips passionately, and intensely, and both of them knew that this kiss would probably be the last, and they were both okay with that. But it didn't end there. As one thing was leading to another, Pietro confessed that he never did it before, and Dr. Light didn't either. So, they were both going into this together. And for the next few hours, they spent it in each other's arms, and it was the first time they had ever had an experience like that. A whole day passed and Dr. Light woke up naked in Pietro's arms. She smiled seeing him sleep, and kissed him gently on the cheek. She slowly and carefully took Pietro's arm off of her and put it back onto his body. She quietly and slowly got up and was very careful not to wake him. On the next day, Cisco and Caitlin were waiting in the cortex. Barry had come in, but they were wondering where Pietro was. Has anyone seen Pietro? Caitlin asks. Don't look at me, I haven't seen him. Cisco replied. I hope nothing bad happened. Where could he be? Barry wondered. Then everyone was looking for Pietro, and considering Barry was there, the search was a lot faster. But Caitlin found him in Dr. Light's cell. Caitlin was surprised seeing this. She saw a naked Pietro, surrounded by his own clothes, and Dr. Light's. She was even more surprised to see just him in there. What happened? What did you do, Pietro? Caitlin asked him, in a shocked and demanding tone. We were just practicing. Pietro replied. Practicing? Practicing what? Caitlin asks. Then a sudden realization it hit her. You know what? Never mind, I don't even want to know. Just hurry up, and get dressed. Caitlin demanded. Pietro got dressed in super speed, but he was confused on what to do with Dr. Light's clothes. Just bring us her clothes when we let you out of there. Caitlin said over the intercom. When Cisco opens Dr. Light's cell, Cisco kept asking Pietro loudly, what did you do, Pietro? What did you do? Then when he opened her cell, Pietro first felt a shove on his arm, then Cisco felt that he was pushed to the floor. What the hell, man? Cisco yelled. Caitlin, what is going on? Cisco asks, getting up. Pietro was inside of Dr. Light's cell, Caitlin yelled. Maybe you should ask him. Caitlin said angrily. Cisco asked what he did, and Caitlin answered with, let's just say, he got a little too close to one of the prisoners. Caitlin said annoyed. As much as I would like to ask several thousand questions about what happened, Dr. Light is getting away, and we have to find her. Cisco said. Caitlin sent me an alert, and I got here as fast as I could. She also told me what's going on. Barry said, dressed in his flash suit. Barry zooms around the building, and to see the Dr. Light is nowhere to be found. How did she get out? Barry asks. She tricked us, Pietro, a little more than most. Cisco said, looking at Pietro emphatically. Dr. Light managed to hack into the lights of her cell. The whole building runs on fiber optics, that operates on posters of light, so she turned off the dampeners and used her powers. Cisco says. I didn't know she could do that. Pietro exclaimed. What? Turn invisible? Cisco asks. Well, yeah, but also, I didn't think that she would leave. Pietro answered. Well, now we have no way of finding her, and no way to catch her. Cisco said. There may be one way, Caitlin said. We can track her light energy, using the satellites. That could work. Barry said. That or I can vibe her. Cisco said. Okay, let's try the satellite first. Barry suggested. Everyone nods, and gets ready. We can try the satellite first, and then see if we have to go with Cisco's powers. Barry said. If this works, we might not have to. Cisco said. Okay. Barry said. Cisco, how long will it take for you to do that? I don't know, a few minutes, maybe 5. But though this satellite is a good idea, please don't forget that it's not our only option, Cisco said. Yeah, but hopefully the satellite will work, and you won't have to use your powers. Barry said. The satellite was being set up, and the satellite was able to pick up the energy trail. I wanted to try to tell her that I would need her, to get Zoom here. Barry said. But now that she's gone. Barry said, letting his words trail off. I have no idea how, but we'll figure out a way, and I promise you, Barry, we will help you, and we will take down Zoom. Pietro said. Barry and everyone else looked at Pietro with exasperated and incredulous expressions. For real? Cisco asks. After everything that's happened, you expect us to trust you now? Dr. Light is gone because of you. Caitlin said. And, you expect us to just take your word for it now? Cisco added. Guys, listen, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Yes, Dr. Light is gone, but I didn't try to help her escape. Pietro said to everyone else. I don't blame you guys for being mad, I blame myself. And I know it might take a little more than just words, but I want to prove that you can trust me. Pietro says to them. But Barry used his super speed to put Pietro back into the pipeline. Sorry about this, Pietro, but we're still not sure if you're telling the truth or not. Barry said to Pietro. You guys will just have to trust me, I don't have any ill will towards anyone, I just want to help. Pietro said loudly. I want to believe you, but I just don't know anymore. Barry said before he sped off. Barry was back in the main lab with everyone else. Barry looked a little sad and disappointed, but he did what he felt he had to do. So, what are we going to do? Caitlin asks. There's really only one option as far as trapping Zoom is concerned. Barry said. But if we have no idea where Dr. Light is, what's the point? Cisco asks. We don't have to, Harry Wells said. We can just use the Linda Park from your Earth. He finished. And how is that supposed to help us? Caitlin asks. You'll use her as bait, to lure Zoom here. Wells said. But, we can't bring an innocent person into this. Barry protested. And, why not? Wells asks. Because she is an innocent civilian. Barry answered. You're the Flash, you can protect her, and we can help you. Harry said. Barry thought about it for a moment. Okay, we need a plan, and that's as good as any. Barry said. Okay. How do we do this? Barry asks. First, we convince your Linda Park to dress up as Dr. Light, we stage a convincing fight that involves you losing, and then she throws your new emblem through the breach as proof that she killed the Flash, then Zoom will come running. Harry said. Okay, and then what? Cisco asks. Back on my Earth, I worked on a serum to dampen Zoom's speed, all we need is for Ramon to develop a weapon to deliver it. Harry said. Oh great. That can be this year's cold gun, maybe another criminal can get it, and then we'd have Sergeant Slow. Caitlin said with exasperation. I would never let that happen. Sergeant Slow's a terrible name. Cisco said. Are we forgetting how powerful then Barry Zoom seems to be? If Barry can catch bullets, what's to say Zoom can't catch whatever you shoot at him? Caitlin asks. Surprise. The element of surprise. All we need to do is rig a projectile to shoot at him as he crosses the breach. Zoom can't stop what he can't see coming. Harry said. Caitlin turns to Joe and asks if he had anything to say. She considers him the voice of reason. We need a plan. That sounds as good as any, as long as he can deliver. Joe said. Don't underestimate me, detective. Harry said. Then Barry's cell phone vibrated, and he realized that he received a text from Patty saying that both him and Joe should meet her at the station. Barry said that he'd meet him there, but Joe said that he wanted to have a talk with both Cisco and Caitlin. Are you just forgetting everything Jay told us in supporting Wells now? Caitlin asked Joe. Oh no, I don't trust Wells at all. I just want to know what he's up to. I just figured we'd give him some rope behind himself. Joe said and suggested. Yeah, I'm totally with you. I think he's hiding something. Cisco said. My hunch in interrogating suspects all these years, something's not right with this guy, Joe says. Barry told me about this thing you can do. Joe asks. We call it vibing. Caitlin says with a proud smile. Yeah, we've been testing my powers, and we've gotten better at it. Cisco said with a small chuckle. We haven't quite figured out all the limits of his abilities, but it's a work in progress. Caitlin said. It's really interesting stuff. Cisco said. So, I need you to vibe him and find out what his game is, and don't let him see you. Joe said. No problem. Cisco said. We can do that. Okay. Joe said. And, we'll make sure Wells doesn't know about our suspicion. Caitlin says. Back in Cisco's lab, Cisco tried to congratulate Harry Wells by telling him that, using the tungsten composites to dampen the vibrations, it was pretty brilliant. Cisco put his hand on Harry's shoulder, but not only did Cisco not get anything, but Harry was on to him from the beginning, and told him that, if you have questions ask them, otherwise stay away from me. Harry said strictly and sharply. Cisco walked out and whispered, you'd think that the serial killer version of him would be the bigger jerk. Well, what happened when you touched him? What did you see? Caitlin asks. Oh, I didn't see anything. Cisco said in a little voice. Then go touch him again. Caitlin quickly said. No, he's on to me now. Cisco said looking back at Harry. Then you have to keep trying. I think maybe Joe's right. I think maybe something happened between both Wells and Zoom that made this personal in some way. Caitlin said to Cisco before they walked away. At the West home. Hey, Barry said as he walked in and took off his jacket. Hey, Iris said back. As Linda's still cooking. Barry asks. Yep, there's enough to feed an army in there. Iris said. She must be terrified when she found out that Dr. Light escaped herself, and speaking of which, were there any attempts on her life? Barry asks. No, none so far, and it's not just Dr. Light, she's still a little traumatized from when Zoom nearly killed her. Iris said. Well, it's a good thing that I've come to tell her that me and my team have developed a way to catch him, Barry was saying as Linda walked in the living room. We can lure Zoom here, and to capture him, if you're willing to help us, Linda. Barry asked, turning to Linda. Linda looked down and thought for a moment, then looked back up at Barry and asked, what do you need me to do? She asked after a moment. With Cisco and Joe and nearly everyone else in the training basement in STAR labs. As Joe walked in, he smiled and laughed at a picture and cardboard cutting of himself. He looked up at Cisco and asked, Dude, how long have you been sitting on this? Cisco then showed a carved out cardboard picture of himself holding a camera and making a goofy expression. It's important to have hobbies, he said, pointing at the cardboard picture of himself. Then Linda walked in, dressed as Dr. Light, and Barry told her everything about what she should do. And Caitlin told Linda about how the gloves that Cisco rigged up for her works, and they immediately started training Linda on how to be Dr. Light. There may have been some trial and error, but she worked through it and got the hang of it. Caitlin said that she found where a breach would be, where there were no civilians, and no one would get hurt. Then after their staged fight played out, Barry was on the ground, and after Linda said, Zoom always wins. She took off Barry's emblem, and threw it through the breach portal and waited for a long time, but Zoom never came. Barry even made some complaints, but other than that, Zoom never came, and it appeared that the plan didn't work. Around an hour later, everyone went back to STAR Labs. Iris and Linda said that they were going to go back to Central City Picture News cause the chief editor Larkin called them in for some reason. Harry was looking at the footage over and over again wondering what went wrong, and Joe wanted to talk to Barry for a moment. "Hey Bar, I need to talk to you for a minute." Joe asks. Barry gave a nod, and Joe led him to an empty hall where they could talk. "Bar, I'm worried, not just about Zoom, but also about you," Joe said. "Why?" Barry asks. "Ever since this whole thing with Zoom started, I've noticed that you've been more tense and agitated than usual, and it's not just Zoom that's been bothering you," Joe said. Barry took a deep breath and looked away for a moment, but when he turned back to Joe, he looked up at Joe and sighed, and then started talking. "I'm sorry, I'm trying, and I'm still doing what I can, but every day that I don't get faster, or Zoom doesn't show his face, and every day that Zoom is still out there, I'm a little worried that this is more than just about Zoom. This may be about Reverse Flash," Joe said. "Yeah, it is, but not for the reason you might think," Barry said. "Well, what's going on, Bar?" Joe asks. "Before the Reverse confessed to my mom's murder, he said that even if he's dead, he still won, cause I'll never truly be happy," Barry said. "How the hell would he know?" Joe asks. "Because he knew me, he knows future me," Barry said. "That's future you, this is the you here and now," Joe said. "What if the Reverse is right? Ever since I went back to that night, and I didn't save her, there's been this void in me, I just can't help but feel that feeling will always be there. For better or worse, Wells. He knew me," Barry said with lingering sorrow. "He knew the fastest man alive," Barry said. "The fastest man alive is the one running around the city, putting criminals behind bars, saving people from fires and helping people with their everyday problems," Joe said. "And besides, he may have stalked you for 15 years, but I raised you," Joe said. "And Wells said what he said to mess with you, to try and get in your head one last time. If you listen to him, you let him win," Joe says. Barry smiled a little bit and chuckled lightly. "Thanks, Joe," Barry said. "You're welcome, Barry," Joe replied. "You're responsible for your own happiness, Barry. Forget about Wells, and think hard about what you want, and what makes you happy, and go out and get it. It's as simple as that," Joe said to Barry. Barry gave a final nod of confirmation to Joe. With Cisco, Caitlin, and Harry Wells. Cisco put the backup lightning emblem on the suit. "These things don't grow on trees, you know. Please don't act like they do," Cisco said. "Sorry we threw the last one away for nothing," Barry said to Cisco. Cisco just made an annoyed expression. "You've been going over this footage dozens of times, everything went according to plan," Caitlin said to Harry. "If it had, Zoom would have shown up," Harry said disappointedly. "Maybe Light was wrong, maybe he can't see through the breaches," Barry said. "Or maybe he decided to give up," Barry guessed. Harry took off his glasses wearily and just said under his breath that he doubted it. Then Barry's phone rang, and it was Iris. Whoa, Iris, slow down, I can't understand you," Barry said. Then both the metahuman alarm on the main computer goes off, and Harry's metahuman watch goes off, and Barry says that Zoom has Linda. Then Cisco said that Zoom is on the roof. Barry quickly puts the suit on, and speeds up to the roof. Zoom has Linda by the throat and he was holding her in the air. "You like to fish with bait, I do too," Zoom said slowly and sinisterly. "You were a poor substitution for the real Dr. Light," Zoom said to Linda. "But you served your purpose," Zoom said, before he threw her off the building. Barry sped down quickly to form two wind-like tornadoes to slow Linda's fall, till he caught her. "Are you okay?" he quickly asks. She quickly shook her head yes, and said, "You can't fight that thing, it's a monster," Linda said. Barry told her to get out of there. Barry got Linda out, and he went back to Zoom. "Where is she? Where is the real Dr. Light?" Zoom asks. "She's gone," Barry replied. "Not gone enough, I want her dead," Zoom demanded. You're going to have to get through me first. Barry, the Flash said to Zoom. And what do you want from me anyway? Barry, the Flash acts. Everything. Zoom said grimly. Back in Star Labs. Zoom can't be human. Caitlin said fearfully. Don't worry. He is, or was. Harry said. How's Barry supposed to beat that? Cisco asks in both worry and concern. Then as the Flash starts running around the entirety of Star Labs, Harry asked why he was running away, but Cisco said that, he's not running away, he's not even scared, he's going to try and thunderbolt him. What? Harry asked in confusion. Then Caitlin said with a small grin, that Jay taught him how to throw lightning. Then when the Flash finally threw it at him, both Barry and the other three saw something that scared all of them and put them in a state of dread and worry. Zoom caught the orange lightning, and threw it right back at the Flash, making him dent a sign behind him that said East Wing. As the Flash got up, he asked if everyone saw that. Cisco answered saying, seeing him catch a bolt of lightning with his demonic claws, yeah, saw that. Jay's right, he cannot do this alone. Caitlin said worriedly. He's not alone. Harry said, twisting a silencer on the dart gun he had, and going outside to help Barry. Run, Barry. Caitlin said fearfully. No, I'm gonna see if Wells's speed dampening serum works. Barry said in a low voice. When you said that you wanted everything from me, what did you mean by that? You mean you want to be me? Do you want to be a hero? The Flash asked Zoom. Zoom gave a sinister chuckle. Heroes die, he said. Only if you can catch them. The Flash said before speeding off. Zoom was speeding off after the Flash with blue lightning trailing behind him. As they were speeding around to the roof of the building, Caitlin asks Cisco, how's Barry gonna match Zoom's speed? Then Cisco says, genius, he's not going to match it, he's going to take it out of the equation altogether. Confused, Caitlin quickly asks what Cisco is talking about. Cisco then answers, terminal velocity, the highest velocity attainable by a falling object. Falling through the air. Caitlin asks. Yeah, free fall fight. Their drag force equals the downward force of gravity, making the net force zero, making. Cisco says while gesturing to Caitlin to finish the rest of what he was saying. Caitlin's eyes widen, then she smiles in realization saying, equal velocities, that is genius. As they were falling back down, both the Flash and Zoom were trading blows. Then when they finally hit the ground, Barry realized that he no longer had the speed dampening dart with him, and he dropped it as they were free fall fighting. But when they hit the ground, Zoom pulled him back up and was hitting him with all kinds of speed punches. Then when one struck his back, Barry fell down to the ground, his face all bloodied and bruised. Then as Zoom was about to try to finish off the Flash, Wells tried to shoot Zoom with his speed dampening drug, but Zoom turned around and caught it and said to Wells in a demonic sinister voice. Never forget, I am the fastest man alive. Then he stabbed the Flash with it, then turned his head and grimly said to Wells. You're next. Then Zoom speeds around Central City, then he speeds into the Central City Picture News, and says while holding the Flash by the scruff of his suit and holding him up in the air, look at your hero, this man is no god. He is nothing. Zoom said while speeding out. Then Zoom sped into the Central City Police Department. All the cops drew their guns at him, but Joe told all of them to hold their fire, because he really didn't want them to accidentally shoot the Flash. The days of the Flash protecting this city are over. Zoom practically declared to everyone there. Put him down. Patty demanded loudly. Now what will you and the rest of this city do without your precious hero? Zoom asked grimly. Then the captain ordered, shoot that thing now. But as everyone was shooting at him, Zoom caught all of their bullets, and dropped them all in front of the people who shot them. Nice try. Zoom said to them slowly as he sped out in blue lightning. Then Zoom sped all the way back to Star Labs. Then Zoom said to Wells as he was taking off the Flash's cowl revealing Barry's face. Harrison Wells, you thought you could beat me. With this. Zoom asked him. I made a mistake. Wells whispered loudly. Yes, a costly one. Zoom said as he held Barry up by his neck, and phased his fingers through Barry's stomach. Goodbye Flash, you also weren't fast enough. Zoom said. Then gets hit in the neck with a speed dampening dart by Cisco. Zoom dropped Barry, and he also fell to his hands and knees as he pulled it out of his neck. But still flickering and crackling with blue lightning, he sped out immediately. No, no, Wells shouted down the now empty hallway. Caitlin ran over to Barry, and gave him CPR, and kept telling him to hold on and stay with us. When Cisco walked over to give Wells his projectile weapon back, he touched Wells's wrist, and vibed that a girl named Jessie was in a glass prison, and she was being held captive by Zoom. This is all on you. If Barry dies, you die. Joe said loudly and furiously. Joe. Barry's vitals have stabilized, let's let him go. Caitlin says. No, Caitlin. Joe says quickly. Why? What good does that do Barry? Caitlin asks. It's going to help me, Joe says both angrily and grimly. As Harry tried to move away, Joe shoved him back. Joe, stop, Cisco quickly said. Then Cisco turned to Harry and asked. Who's Jessie? Harry quickly walked a little closer to Cisco and said, You did vibe me. Jess is my daughter. Zoom has her. What did you see? Harry asks. I saw your daughter, and she's with Zoom. Cisco said. But she's alive. Harry quickly asks. Yes, she is. Cisco answered. Harry had a look of relief on his face. Zoom sent you here like the others. You kill the Flash, then you get your daughter back. Joe asks, still with anger in his voice. The only way I get my daughter back is if I capture Zoom. You love Barry. I love my daughter, Harry said, slamming his fist on the doorway. And none of these children are safe as long as Zoom is here. I tried on my Earth to capture him. I already failed there. I thought that I could bring him down on this Earth with Barry's help. I was wrong. Then Harry sadly walked away. But then everyone turned worriedly to Barry. On the next day, Cisco said that it looks like Barry's waking up. Caitlin called out for him twice before Barry started stirring a little, and then opened his eyes to see both Cisco and Caitlin standing next to his bed. You scared the crap out of us, Cisco said. How bad is it? Barry asks. Pretty bad. If you didn't heal so quickly, I'd be worried. Caitlin said. Linda, how is she? Barry asks. She's fine. She's staying with some friends in Coast City. Cisco said. And Zoom? Barry asks. Quote. Let's worry about Zoom when you're up and about, okay? Cisco said, putting a hand on one of Barry's legs. Then Barry started to fearfully sit up, seeing that Cisco has a hand on one of his legs, but couldn't feel it. Caitlin put a hand on Barry's shoulder, and then says to Barry. Oh no, you're staying put. Yeah, seriously, you got your ass kicked. Cisco said. No guys, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. Barry said to both of them in fearful realization.
End of chapter 5. I would like to first apologize for making this chapter a little bit longer than I reasonably should have, because I honestly should have made it at least around 20 minutes at least, but I kind of allowed myself to get carried away because I wanted to make this chapter longer than the previous two. But I didn't have time to go back and, change some things and stuff like that. And I also apologize for making this from a certain point on all about Barry, when this is really just supposed to be about Pietro's journey through this new world, as well as multiverse. But I promise you, in the 6th chapter, it will be about that, as well as him with a certain love interest that will be there for him romantically. I'm gonna go ahead and admit that I don't really know where I'm gonna go in the 6th chapter, but I am gonna do my best on it. So if anybody would leave a comment down below on what any of them should recommend that I do in the next chapter, please do so. And also, don't forget to like, think, and comment and subscribe and stuff. And I'll see you in chapter 6.